Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video as I go over 10 beginner tips of things you should think about before you buy or start your RC model airplane flying. Let's get to it.
Is that an ARF or did you kit build that?
I kit build it. It's one of the easiest kits I've ever built.
I've got a so small here.
There are many videos out there on what you should do before you take initial RC model airplane flights, pre-flighting airplanes, control checks, center of gravity balance, getting an instructor, and so forth. Those are all very important. They're very valid. I have several videos on those topics of my own. They're all listed in the description. In this video, though, I'd like to go over 10 things to think about if you have seen model airplanes flying, you've thought about it, you'd like to get into it. These are some things you should think about before you enter the hobby to make sure you take the correct path and come up with success with your RC model flying. The first thing that you need to get right is to pick the correct airplane. And when you're beginning to fly RC model airplanes, you want what is called a trainer airplane. A trainer airplane is a plane that's fairly easy to build, and if it's almost ready to fly, easy to fly. It doesn't have too many bad flight characteristics. What you want to avoid and what you can see very easily are things like jets, pits, high performance aerobatic airplanes. Those will come later. Go ahead and make sure that you pick the correct trainer that you want to fly with. There are many options of trainers. You can get almost ready to fly trainers. You can build kits. One plane that I recommend, and I have a video on this as a trainer, is the E-flite Radian. This is a 3-channel powered glider, essentially, with a motor, rudder, and elevators, no ailerons. This is, you can buy it for around $100. You bind it to your transmitter. This is a great little airplane for learning how to fly because you can keep it close in, and it's a very good flyer. Other things you might want to do is to build your own trainer. There are many trainer kits out here. This is the Stevens Aero Quick Oats. Again, a link in the description. The kit goes together very well, very easy to build. It's a 3-channel airplane again, no ailerons, with elevator and rudder. This is a very suitable flyer. It's the one you saw in the introduction flying here, the Quick Oats. This is fine here. But what you're basically looking for with a trainer is honest flight characteristics, should fly fairly slow, and it's just something that you're comfortable flying. The next super important step is to join a local RC club. The RC clubs are very easy to find. I'll show you in a second how to do that. But the key thing is when you join a flight, you get to an organized area. Many of these fields will have a runway of some sort. There'll be other folks out there to help you, and there'll be plenty of space to fly. You need space to fly your model airplanes. Don't try to learn to fly in a parking lot or just in some place small. So the RC clubs are a great thing to join. And the key thing about the RC club is all clubs will have an instructor, somebody who's willing to help out new flyers, to take you up for your first couple of flights, to just let you learn how to fly without crashing. The instructors are there to help. They can see things that you may not see as a newcomer to the hobby, and they will guarantee your way to success on flying RC model airplanes. Flying a club, finding an RC club is incredibly easy. Just use the internet. Let's take a look real quick at how you can find a club, and I'll use an example of the club I fly at here in Georgia. We are all familiar with Google, so why don't we just type in a search for the nearest local RC club. And there it is called up, and this is a start. These are 3 clubs nearby. Now, for a little bit better and more complete listing, let's go to the Academy of Model Aeronautics, which is right down there. We'll use my example. We'll type in the city of Beaufort. We'll go to the state of Georgia. We'll pick a range of within 50 nautical miles and find. And voila, here is a bunch of clubs, to include the club that I am a member of, the Georgia Mountain Club. And this is all the information: website, club officers, contacts, benefits, a map of where it's located. It really couldn't be much easier. A third consideration is to get one of the computer-based RC flight simulators. There are several flight simulators out there. I've been using RealFlight. I have an older, little bit older version, Real Flight 8, and the computer-based model airplane flight simulators are fantastic. They have just been getting better and better, and it is amazing how much you can learn with these computer simulators. I recommend getting the simulators and what they call the interlead controller is really the transmitter. It is an incredibly realistic experience flying the airplanes. I'm not sure that you can learn to fly totally off the simulator. Maybe some 8, 9-year-old kid somewhere can, but the simulators help tremendously with orientation and just getting a feel for where the models are. If nothing else, it'll cut your learning time in half. And plus, you can practice when it's nighttime, bad weather, unable to get to the field for job, work, travel, whatever. The computer-based flight simulators are absolutely wonderful. So let's take a look, just real quick look at my setup of Real Flight in my office. So this is the Real Flight flight simulator. You have an interlead controller. It's just a transmitter, but they don't call it that because there's no transmitting. It just plugs into the computer. The Real Flight works on Windows computer. I have a Mac, so I can't use it on the Mac. I have this ancient laptop that I use to run. Real Flight 8 is a version. There's a later one now. And then there's a connection to a widescreen TV. You can play on the TV in your living room, a bigger, better one. But the Real Flight Simulator is a great way for somebody new to RC to practice flying without worrying about getting to the field, crashing, things like that. It's a tremendous help for anybody wanting to fly RC, learn to fly RC, or get better at RC because you fly different airplanes and so forth. So what we'll do is, you can hear the sound, and I'll taxi the airplane up close, just so you can see the controls. You can see the ailerons on the wings, the rudder in back, the elevator up and down, and of course the throttle. What I'll do is I'll purposely taxi into the fence. And you can see even crashes. So on the controller, when we have that, we just push the red button. That sets left into the runway. So let's do a orb around the field. So it really flies realistically. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. I would say probably a little bit faster than the real one, floats a little bit, but it is a wonderful aid on winter days, cloudy days, windy days, whatever, to practice flying. So here I am at full idle, just coming in for the field. Like I said, this floats a little bit more than the real one, and there's a landing right there. We can taxi back if we want to do another one, just push the button. The next consideration for entering RC for a beginner is to get quality RC equipment. We all operate on a budget. I understand that, but this is not the time, in my opinion, to save money by getting incredibly inexpensive equipment, either something you found online or maybe something you saw at a swap meet that could potentially be damaged. I think it is absolutely worth your time to get quality RC equipment. Again, for my RC equipment with Horizon Hobby, I favor Spectrum. I don't get paid any for this, but I've been using Spectrum for a number of years. This is their DX6 transmitter. It is just well built. The Spectrum folks were the first people in about 2004, 2005 to have the 2.4 gigahertz arrangements for the radios, which everybody uses now. And just as an example of how they progress, note here the antenna is built into the system. There's no more of the extension antennas. The same for the receivers. The antennas are built in. There's no wires. They have what they call smart chargers, on and on and on. I feel they have really figured out the whole thing. The bottom line is you don't want to spend some money, get out to the RC field, and either have a failure or a crash due to equipment where you saved money on it. It could be prevented by quality RC gear. I really think it's worth your time and effort to take that approach. It's always a good idea before you make any large purchase, whether it's for an airplane or RC gear, to do some internet research on that. It's just amazing the wealth of information on all aspects of RC flying and equipment that's out there on the web. It's really good to check before you do something to buy an airplane or equipment, just to see if there's something that didn't quite come through with the initial ads or the research you did for that. Internet research is a very good thing for any major purchase with radio control model airplanes. The next consideration you're probably going to have to think about is whether I go to 3 or 4 channels for my trainer aircraft. I fly many airplanes on 3 channels. 3 channels being throttle, which is built in with the electronic speed controller, elevator for pitch, and rudder for turning. Notice there's no ailerons for the bank. What will happen on the setup for the turns, even though this is the rudder, is plugged into the aileron servo, so that when you fly your models, it's a very normal feeling, up, down, left, right with the rudder on this, even though it's the aileron servo, then the throttle. If you have 4 channels, it's still up, down. The ailerons cause the bank of the airplanes. This is the rudder. The reason this is important is with 3-channel airplanes, you'll steer on the ground with this control because this is the aileron. There is no rudder. There is no fourth control. But with 4 channels, ailerons on this side, rudder over here, on the ground you will steer with this. It's not a big deal, but sometimes it can catch you by surprise if you do a lot of 3-channel flying. You're steering with your right thumb. You get onto a 4-channel airplane, and on the takeoff roll, you forget that you're steering with your left thumb. It's something to think about. For learning how to fly, whether it's a 3 or 4-channel airplane, it doesn't really make all that much difference for flying in the air. I think most of your flying as you advance in the hobby will be at least a 4-channel airplane, so it's probably worthwhile to start flying with a 4-channel setup. You'll just make a more natural transition. Notice that almost the basic transmitter you're going to get is this is a 6-channel setup. You can use it with 2 channels, 3 channels, 4. You don't have to use all 6, but it's there for the growth. Many other radios will have up to 8 channels for extra functions like flaps and retractable gear. The next step is to go electric. There's no question that you want your trainer, your initial foray into RC model airplanes to be electric powered flight. Back in the old days, 30 years ago, everybody used some sort of gas-powered engine with the use of modern brushless motors and lithium polymer batteries. The takeover to electric flight has just been nothing short of revolutionary. I would say 97% or more of model airplanes these days are electric-powered flight. And the reason for this is the batteries and motors work really well. There's tons of power. They're very easy to use. Back in the days of gas-powered flight, and I have nothing against gas power. I love the sound, the feel of gas engines, but there was just a lot of work to get those engines started. It was not unusual to see somebody show up in the field and not be able to fly that day. They just couldn't get their engine started. Bad fuel, leaks in the fuel lines, problems with the engines, whatever. With electric-powered flight, the engines are incredibly reliable. You literally flip a switch and you're going. They're quiet. They're wonderful. The other hit on gas-powered planes these days for beginners is you're going to need some help with any problems with that motor. There's likely to be almost nobody at your club field that has a lot of experience with the gas engines that can help you if you have problems, if you need a new glow plug, whatever. The gas engines are fine when you're focused on that segment of the hobby later on. For beginners, do use electric-powered flight. The next item is field support equipment. When you're at the RC field, it's important to get adequate support equipment. You've packed up, you've driven out to the field, your batteries are charged, you want to have a nice day flying. It'd be a shame to lose that because you didn't have the right set of wrenches, screwdrivers, propellers, or whatever to allow you to continue flying. It's a good idea to get a field box. Get that at any sort of Home Depot type store. I have all sorts of trays with propellers on here. And inside, I have my charger. I have a battery for the charger. We do not have any place to plug in at the field that I use. Rubber bands, tape, anything that I need to support myself with the field. It's not a lot of stuff, but it's really nice to be able to continue flying because you have that extra battery, wrench, whatever, to allow you to fix something that is broken and continue on with the day. The next item is whether or not you want to use an autopilot to help with your learning how to fly. There are things like SAFE, S-A-F-E, that some models use as a computer system. There's an autopilot that will help you recover the model. There's various modes on how to do it. I think it's best in the short and long run to not use an autopilot. I think it's best just to learn how to fly the model as the airplanes fly. I say that as a full-scale pilot and a model airplane pilot. When you have any sort of automation assisting or impacting the control of the aircraft, a lot of the time, especially when you're on the ground, you're not in the cockpit observing what the automation is really doing. You're asking yourself, am I doing that or is the autopilot doing that? And it can be a negative feedback loop. The attraction is, the advertisements are, you won't crash the airplane, you'll be able to bring it home. I think it's better to learn how to fly the airplane. My final input to the beginner for RC flying is to avoid what I call toy RC airplanes. These are our planes that are almost ready to fly. They come out of the box. This is a Hobby Zone Duet. And what my definition of toy airplane is, the transmitter comes with the airplane. Now, I have several of these airplanes. They're fun. They are something different. But the problem is you're spending a fair amount of money, probably about $100 to get this combination plane and transmitter. But you're stuck there. You can't go beyond this. So for example, with this transmitter, there's no way to use this transmitter for another airplane through binding. For example, with this, I bind the airplane so it works with this transmitter, okay? So that way I save money and I can use the transmitter with a number of airplanes. With these toy airplanes, oftentimes there's a little gimmick on it. In the case of the Duet, and again, I'm not denigrating that, I'm just explaining this. You have 3 channels of control with the throttles, elevator, but there's no rudder. The way the model turns is differential thrust when you move the stick on the transmitter. So you get to turn, but it's a very odd way of turning because you're reducing the power on the inside engine. And when you pull the power back to idle, which you do all the time to fly, both engines go to idle. Because there's no rudder, you can't turn the airplane when you're in idle. So you're flying the airplane, but you're picking up some very odd techniques in the course of learning how to fly it because of the lack of a full set of controls. So nothing wrong with toy airplanes. I have a few. They are fun, but you are using money for this transmitter that you can't use for another airplane. So it's just something to keep in your mind to perhaps save a little bit of money. Thank you for joining me in this video. It's been fun discussing some things to think about before you enter RC flight. There's a wealth of information out there with clubs, instructors, the internet, YouTube. It's just a wonderful time to fly RC model airplanes. A lot of good information out there, a lot of incredibly quality kits and almost ready to fly. It truly is the golden age of RC model airplane flying. So best of luck to you with your flying pursuits and look forward to seeing you at the RC field. Take care.